So welcome everyone. This is breakout session 2D. We're going to be talking about tactics for accelerating equitable solar development. My name is Henry McKay. I'm the Heartland Regional Director of a nonprofit organization called Solar United Neighbors. We help people go solar, join together, and fight for their energy rights. And I'm joined by my colleague in West Virginia, Leah Barber. Leah, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here with you today. My name is Leah Barber, and I'm the state director of our program here in West Virginia on behalf of Solar United Neighbors.
Thanks, Leah. And I'm going to share the screen. So can everybody see that okay? Oops. That didn't work. Oops. Sorry, I just lost my Zoom controls here for a moment. Is my screen still sharing?
Yes, but you still got your stuff on the left. It's not the slideshow.
Oh, sorry about that. How is that? Is that a slide?
Yes.
Full screen? All right,
yeah.
Let's do it. Okay. So we're going to be talking about some specific field-tested strategies and tactics that we use at Solar United Neighbors to accelerate solar deployment, and also talk about this in very practical terms for what we're going to be working on this year around Appalachia, and some specific ways that we can all maybe work together to help more people benefit from solar in this region. But before I start, I just want to be clear about what exactly we're talking about here today. And the kind of solar we focus on at Solar United Neighbors and what we're talking about today is distributed solar. So this is solar that's installed on site. The energy is being used primarily locally. So here you can see an example in Pittsburgh on top of a single family home, but it could be on a school, could be on a business, could be on a government building, community organization. But this is distributed solar as opposed to utility scale solar. So a huge number of solar panels out in a field somewhere that's providing power to the grid, basically acting like a power plant delivering wholesale power to the market. And the reason we're focusing on we focus on distributed solar at Solar United Neighbors is because we think not only does it provide all these obvious environmental benefits, it's clean energy, but it also shares those benefits more widely. So this individual homeowner here, they're saving a lot of money on their electric bill. It creates this more distributed, decentralized energy system that's less oriented around individual monopoly electric utilities, and gives regular communities and homeowners and organizations control, kind of an unprecedented degree of control over where their energy is coming from and how it's generated. So just got that out of the way. Now, the big point I want to start off with is the solar market is improving in a lot of wonderful ways this year. We talked a lot about the Inflation Reduction Act, all the new incentives that now are flowing to different parts of the economy to make it more affordable and easier to go solar. The technology gets better every day. The prices are improving a lot. But just the market alone, even with all this new government assistance, is still not enough to ensure that the benefits of solar are shared broadly and everyone's really able to access this technology for themselves. Now, one reason for this is the primary incentive for putting up rooftop solar is the federal tax credit. And those tax credits don't work for everyone. So if you are a homeowner and your income is low enough, you don't have any tax bill to take the credit against. And until this year, if you didn't have a tax bill at all because you were tax exempt, like a nonprofit organization or a church, you couldn't use a tax credit at all. But now the tax credit, there's a direct pay option, so nonprofits can get it, but still lower incomes households, it's not a useful incentive for them. There's a lot of hyper-local roadblocks. You may have the policy pieces in place to support a solar market, but things at the very local level might get in the way. These could be homeowners associations that have rules about restricting solar, local government rules that restrict solar from maybe the street side, facing part of your roof, zoning restrictions, permitting delays from the local electric utility, things that are often invisible to policymakers. There's also always the risk of scams and bad actors. Solar is complicated and expensive, and there's a big information imbalance between the seller and the buyer, and that's always a recipe for scams and bad deals and unscrupulous actors in the market. And it seems like that's going to be heating up now with all these new solar incentives and richer solar incentives on the market. So there's a need to protect consumers. And also, you know, while solar is mainstreamed in a lot of the country, you see installations all over the place. It's still not very evenly spread. So especially a lot of rural communities may not see a lot of solar. They may not feel like it's something for them, something that's a realistic option for them and their neighbors. So there's still that barrier of being kind of a unknown new technology. You know, why would I invest all this money in something I don't have experience with? And so that's why we think it's really critical to kind of augment what the market's providing, what the government's providing, with intentional consumer-focused solar deployment programs. We do these in the form of what we call solar co-ops, which Leah is going to talk about more, and other related programming, where we're going out into communities, educating people about solar, helping them select a reputable solar installer, and then holding their hand through that whole process of going solar and beyond. One reason these kind of programs are important is because they provide a lot of education to consumers, which allows them to protect themselves from scams and bad installers, get a good price, and generally have a good customer experience. And also that helps them be advocates for helping their neighbors and family members and other people in their community go solar in the future. These kind of programs, when the resources are available, can help deliver financial assistance to under-resourced households. You know, a lot of people will need extra financial assistance to go solar, and a program like this can be a structured, careful, equitable way to deliver those resources to people, along with education. These kind of programs are also great at overcoming skepticism and generating a lot of excitement and noise in the communities where they're happening about solar energy. So we work hard to get earned media coverage, to get local partner organizations to talk about this opportunity, about the opportunity to go solar. So there's a lot of evidence that solar spreads like virally. So you see people in your community doing it, you see a yard sign in their front yard, and that results in actual new installations in that area. You know, there's kind of group effects when a lot of people are doing this at the same time. Having this kind of these programs give you a really grassroots level, on the ground perspective on, are there any previously unknown obstacles to people going solar, like homeowners associations, like local government restrictions, like permitting delays, things like that. Sometimes you don't get that perspective until you're there with individual customers who are trying to go solar. And then these programs can also help create a strong constituency for distributed solar. So people who are literally, you know, physically and financially invested in this technology have a reason to defend it, and they can go to their state legislature to, you know, talk to their elected officials to protect their investment in solar, but also make it easier for more people in their community to go solar. So this is a real world example of that. This is a picture from the Save Our Solar rally that we ran down in Florida to fight a state bill that would have gutted net metering, which would have basically reduced the compensation that a solar owner gets for the energy that flows to the grid and make solar really uneconomical in Florida. This was ultimately a successful campaign. While the law was passed, it was vetoed by Governor DeSantis, partly because we mobilized this large number of both solar installers and also solar homeowners to say, this is important. This is an important investment to protect. And you can do that with these programs. You can bring people into a movement in this way. That wouldn't happen if they're just kind of on their own, finding their own solar installer and going solar. Now I'm going to hand it over to Leah, who's going to talk about some practical tools that we're going to be using this year for solar deployment in Appalachia, namely the Ohio Valley Solar Co-op and what we're calling the IRA Roadshow. Over to you, Leah. You want me to just advance the slides as you move through it?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Cool. All right. As I mentioned before, it's really great to be here with you all this afternoon. Henry just did a really wonderful job explaining some of the principal foundations that inform and guide our work here at Solar United Neighbors. And as he just mentioned, we're going to do a deeper dive into some of the programmatic examples in our plans for 2023 of how we're going to work to deploy distributed generation here in Appalachia and beyond as an organization, and also to find ways that we can come together and work toward that common goal that I would assume that many of us share who are on this call today over the coming year. And so, next slide, please. Thank you. As Henry mentioned, one of the ways that we've been doing this is through our solar co-op model. And so you can think of the co-op as a local solar bulk purchase buying program. And so this is a case where we aggregate around 50 to 100 people within a specific geographic boundary and help them go solar together at the same time. And so, as we mentioned, we're a nonprofit, so it's free, there's no obligation. And some of the benefits of joining a co-op are, as Henry mentioned, we facilitate educational and information sessions where we go over solar financing and economics, technology, and the co-op process. It allows for members to really get a good deal by aggregating and leveraging their bulk purchase buying power through competitive pricing. We're an installer neutral organization, and so we'll issue an RFP at some point in the process. And this really allows for us to give, very specific and unbiased guidance to the folks who are participating in our co-ops. We can move forward. Thank you. And so this slide depicts our co-op process. And so it happens over an 8-month span of time. And, in the first few months, as I mentioned, us as an organization, we're really cultivating partnerships with partners who are on the ground within the geographic boundary that we intend to be in service to. We're inviting folks to come to these informational Solar 101 sessions is what we call them, where they can bring all of their questions and really just get a hyperspeed download of all things solar in one place. And then also, encouraging folks to spread the word, really working with our partners on the ground to make sure that there's, a broad awareness of the solar opportunity for the solar co-op to participate. And then, as I mentioned, once we have maximum carrying capacity or for our solar co-op, we will put out a request for proposals. And once we get those in, we have a self-selected volunteer committee who will base a decision. We'll compare all of the RFPs together. And there are some predetermined values that co-op members kind of select for as they enter into the co-op. And so some of those would be pricing, other things are, technology. And so there are many different variables that folks kind of elevate as their value and priority as a co-op participant. And so the selection committee is, as I mentioned, a self-selected volunteer group who is supposed to represent the collective interests of the co-op as they're comparing bids. And once an installer is selected, then they will perform unique site assessments for each individual homeowner and send out proposals. At that time, we can help to go over proposals with members and answer any questions that they may have. And then they'll receive a contract and go through the process. And so that is a look into what the co-op process kind of looks like. Then we move forward into installations, and then also try to find a time where we can all commune and celebrate the success of the co-op together as well. And we can move forward, please. So as I mentioned, we work in close cooperation with our partners on the ground to make these local solar co-ops a success. And we contribute a lot of the success of these co-ops to their support, really, and to the trustworthy relationships that that they have within the communities that they live in. And so some partner roles, just to touch on what it looks like, is to help to build a broad base of membership or interest in the co-op. So that could be anything from helping us identify where potential locations could be for our Solar 101 info sessions, just gathering folks and doing fun things like having a solar trivia night or something like that. Also doing print media, so hanging flyers, etc. So it's really at the discretion of the partner how they would like to participate in the co-op. There's no like obligatory dynamic unless there's something that we have a mutual understanding of how the relationship will work. And so partnership is really central to the success of these co-ops. I cannot emphasize that enough. And so with this next co-op that we're going to be launching in 2023 is the Ohio Valley Solar and EV Charger Co-op. And so it's a tri-state co-op. It'll be Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. Henry, can you advance, please? Thank you. And it will be launching in May as well. So this is going to be an EV charger and solar co-op. We can go forward one more there. So it's going to serve the tri-state region, as I just mentioned, with Wheeling, West Virginia serving as our anchor point. And related counties in West Virginia will be Hancock, Wetzel, Ohio, Brooke, Marshall, and Mon. And then also in Pennsylvania, it will include Washington and Greene counties. And in Ohio, the co-op will serve Jefferson, Belmont, Monroe, and I think that's it in Ohio. Yeah. And then next, please. And so that solar co-op model and really leveraging that regional cross-state dynamic is something that we will be focusing on and are expanding our co-op model. Typically, we'll launch co-ops in, a specific county in one of our respective states. We're expanding that to include the tri-state area for this, for the Ohio Valley Co-op. And so we'll have our respective state directors working on the ground with partnerships in those states as well to bring this co-op to fruition. So I'm really looking forward to that. And like I said, we will be launching in May. And so we're at the forefront of the beginning and planning stages at this time. And then the next way that we intend to help spur distributed generation in 2023 is to really leverage the Inflation Reduction Act. And so as most of us are gleefully aware, the recent passage of the IRA really presents an enormous need to ensure that funding drives a just and equitable transition to renewables. And the IRA really generously expands and improves the USDA's Rural Energy for America program. And it does so by allocating $1 billion in funding for the program over the next 10 years, and also by increasing eligible grant size from 25% of total project cost to 40%. And so this is a significant scaling, and with that, scales the opportunities for agricultural producers and businesses in Appalachia to transition to distributed generation sources. And so we have been working with folks on the Rural Energy for America program and have collected stories, and it's really impactful and encouraging, amazing the way that this program really helps folks in Appalachia. It really helps them save money on their electric costs. And then also it dramatically enhances their capacity to expand and also like reach and expand their operational goals. But with that also creates the need for increasing general awareness of the program as well, and then also increasing technical assistance offerings. And so will you advance forward? One way that we are anticipating some of those needs with regarding just, getting out there and letting folks know about some of these provisions, and then also trying to find ways to enhance our technical assistance offerings is through what we're calling the Inflation Reduction Roadshow, or the IRA Roadshow. And the premise behind the IRA Roadshow is to not only talk about the Rural Energy for America program, that's just one aspect of it, in addition to, the solar income tax credit. And then we're partnering with other organizations as well who are going to come forward with their specific provisions that they would like to highlight. So these meetings, we're going to facilitate 10 community meetings. And the meetings are open to organizations, municipalities, individuals, businesses, etc. There's something in the IRA for everybody. And so we wanted to really open up the floor and invite everybody in to participate in these meetings. But it's my intention to use it as an on-ramp to leverage some of the offerings that we're intending to provide related to the Rural Energy for America program. And can you go one more time, please? Alrighty. And so I guess I didn't mention this, but what the program does is it offers grants and loans as well to agricultural producers and small businesses to install renewable energy systems and to also do energy efficiency projects as well, just like solar. And one more, please. Thank you. So some of these communities that we were talking about that we intend to facilitate these meetings in, don't have a lot of funding to hire this technical assistance for project development or to really get the word out. And so for the IRA to deliver on the promise of expanding rooftop solar, we really need strategic and collaborative efforts to disseminate our tools and educational materials and the programming that we've been talking about. And so together, I believe that we can play a vital role to enhance our reach and impact. That's the next section that we're going to go into here. What Henry and I would like to do next is really focus on messaging and messengers. We have this really big opportunity and a lot that needs to be done. And so we would like to identify some viable pathways to get there. And so we have an interactive, Henry, do I need to share my screen at this time?
You're muted.
Yeah, if you want to do that, or I can share the Jamboard, whatever you want to do. If you have it ready to go.
Yep, I have it ready to go.
Okay.
Alrighty, so we were hoping to collaborate on this exercise and first identify what pro-solar messages resonate with your respective Appalachian community. And if there are others, kind of while we're thinking about this, if there are some that should be avoided, we would like to identify what those are too. And so we would invite you to use the yellow sticky notes, which are the 4th icon down, where you can put your thoughts in a text box on the Jamboard.
And does everyone see the link that Leah put in the chat here to the Jamboard? That'll take you to the Jamboard. You can use the sticky note button on the left-hand side to put in your ideas.
Just so you know, my sticky note button is not working. It's not functional. Anyone else having? Oh, wait, there it goes.
Oh, good.
Wait, no, it didn't. I'm
Well,
trying.
if people can't get that to work, you can stick it in the chat and I'll try to copy them over.
Someone got one to work.
Credits.
Thinking,
So I see one of these here. Solar helps make your energy source more reliable as opposed to resilient. Whoever put that on there, do you want to explain a little bit more about why you think that term reliable is better than resilient in this case?
Yeah, that was me, Jeff DeBelco. I'm at Ohio University, and in the context of the work that we're doing with age-friendly communities in the county, in particular, the advice that we're getting from mayors of the villages who have solar themselves is that they emphasize the economic benefit first, but also avoiding buzzwords like sustainability, resilience, and climate as ones that may immediately stop conversations. Sorry, my dog wants to participate as well. And so in that sense, particularly for the rural parts of the community that are affected by power outages and flooding and disturbances in ways that it appeals to a self-reliance and sense of not depending on authorities or somebody else. So reliability is the frame that avoids some third rails and appeals to frames that are valued anyway.
Thanks, Jeff. That's really interesting. I see one here about energy democracy. So the big utilities don't own all the electrons and we can participate equally in clean energy generation. We've often found similar messages like that work, that kind of anti-utility message or anti-electric bill message. That's something everyone can get behind generally.
Yeah, that seems to be one of the common ground places where folks can really coalesce at the beginning, and it really helps to elevate solar as a solution.
What about if anyone has any thoughts on messages that would work well with farms, other agricultural businesses, or messages that would not work well with them?
don't talk about climate change.
Don't talk about climate change, yeah.
That's what I've been finding.
Yeah, and often the audience who is motivated by climate concerns, you don't need to remind them that solar is something that can help with that.
I think the quality of life or air and water quality message helps in rural communities. Human health, environmental health. They often rely on water wells or on their property that might be destroyed due to fossil fuel extraction.
I see one here about adding a solar array to your farm and co-locating solar with your animals as well. It's really interesting. There have been some really neat studies about the co-benefits of placing solar with grazing animals, and even on land that is not for primary agricultural production as well.
Yeah, this is the emerging field of agrivoltaics, of farming and solar in the same area. So there's some crops you're trying to figure out, can you grow them underneath or among solar panels? can you graze livestock? So there's, sheep are the famous example that also help manage the vegetation. But even things like, can you grow hay, amongst solar panels?
I saw a presentation somewhere where it was noted that the sheep did better, thrived more when they were grazing under the solar panels because they were protected from the UV rays.
Good.
Yeah, they have some shade.
And water is preserved, less evaporation. Sorry that I can't get my sticky notes to work.
So I'm wondering if we could maybe pick a few. I see some common themes around energy freedom. I see some around cost reduction, which maybe is also with energy freedom. Oh, what else do we have? Energy democracy. I'm wondering if maybe we could go to the second exercise where we can think through, if you would like to pick, one of these and respond with who you believe an effective messenger may be to deliver this message.
Do you want to go to the next board and talk about messengers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So everyone should be able to see a page selection at the top of their Jamboard page. And if you go to the next frame, so 2 out of 3, we'll put more stickies on here for messengers, individuals, organizations, types of people, like mayors or local media personalities who could effectively deliver some of these messages that we've been talking about on the first page. And maybe you have experience with kind of mobilizing local messengers around, issues separate from solar that might be relevant here. I see messengers from their own group, i.e. farmers speaking to other farmers. Yes, definitely. That's a big one. Finding peers, people like you who've done this and can be trusted to show you what it's like. Yeah, needs to be local voices, definitely. If you have a utility on board, one of their spokespeople could be helpful. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Usually they're not on board. I think they can be effective messengers, but usually they have a kind of built-in incentive to not want to see a lot of people doing distributed solar amongst their customers, because those are people who are going to be buying less of their product. But yeah, when you can partner with the utility on solar deployment stuff, it can be really powerful. And it's like basically, it's one potential obstacle that becomes an ally. One interesting example that we've used in, I think it was in Florida, in our Florida program, was a local TV meteorologist went solar through one of our solar co-ops and started talking about his solar journey on the air, showing pictures of his solar array, talking about how he went solar and encouraging other people to do it. And, I think meteorologists do that. The local TV weather, personalities are often reasonably well trusted local voices. Wonder if anyone has any like very specific examples, like particular elected leaders or organizations, or even just local regional celebrities who could be effective messengers about this.
Henry, I could tell my story. This is
Yeah, go ahead,
Joanne.
Joanne.
Son came into Center County, Pennsylvania a little over a year ago, and we had one sewage treatment plant, a COG, a community organization of governments, and a couple of municipalities come together as partners. And subsequently, what we did was have home shows where people came in and looked. So I think there were 7 of them. One of them was my home. And in addition to that, I created a video for Sun that included everything that I have, an electric vehicle, the battery backup, and the solar panels, and talking about how you can actually do it in communities that have ordinances that look restrictive and still get around those ordinances. I happen to live in a historic district. And so when I helped write the ordinance, we made sure that what Henry talked about is that you can't put solar panels on the front. What we did was we said you could put them roof edge to edge, but if it was in the front, they needed to blend in with the historic character of the community. As a result of that, just about anybody in our town now can actually put on. You just have to kind of mush what kind of panels you put on in that particular case. But my house, I currently have enough power to completely do the house, the car, and I'm only paying $7 a month for electricity for the last 2 years.
That's a great example. Thanks, Joanne. And
Mm-hmm.
also a good example of identifying those very local restrictions like the historic preservation rules and finding a way to make solar work in that context. So somebody put churches on here, which is a great example. Other houses of worship can be good places to deliver this message, but also, the messengers themselves. Something we're going to talk about on the next slide or the next page of this Jamboard is, if there for particular messengers, are there things that might be we need to do to like activate them, to get them confident and motivated to be talking to their community about solar. And sometimes what that is helping themselves go solar. So, the church went solar. They're showing everyone here it's lowering our electric bill. It went really well for us. Here's why we did it. And here's how you can do it too.
I have a question. Could Joanne or one of you address the warranty and the life of these solar panels? I understand that the life expectancy is growing substantially, and it makes it more affordable now than ever to go solar. I don't know if that's true or not. That's what I've been told.
Yeah, I can address it real quick. So solar panels typically last 25 to 30 years, or at least they're warranted for that long. They have warranties from the manufacturer. And so you have warranty protection for that long period of time. You have a warranty that also will guarantee you a minimum level of power production over time, and show you how that power production is going to degrade as the solar panels age over time. So you can pretty reliably predict how much energy you're going to be producing over those 3 decades. So is one of the advantages. It's like you're buying 30 years worth of energy, and you're prepaying it at a price that you lock in. So you're protecting yourself from all those ups and downs in electricity prices, especially like the ones we've been seeing in the past year or so.
So Fred, the only expenses we've had in terms of maintenance since we put it on in 2015 was our inverters. One of our inverters failed. It had to be replaced, and it was just outside the 2-year warranty period.
So another selling point for the co-op, would it not be the system's paid off and you're actually still making money after you've paid off your system for a few years? That's why I brought up the warranty, and so it's profitable for the homeowner to do that.
That's right. It'll pay for itself, and then thousands more dollars worth of savings on top of that. I like this point. It kind of expands on the house of worship comment. For Muslims, solar power, heavenly source from on high, clean, renewable, blessed. Those kind of faith-based messengers can put it in terms that you're not normally hearing solar talked about. A lot of Christians will talk about creation care as well. How do you frame this as a moral or religious issue? This is our responsibility to take care of creation, and solar is something that can help with that. Oh, thanks for those examples of particular mosques who are doing this. That's helpful. Yeah, and someone put the example of Amish households being solar adopters, which I think is also really fascinating. I'll just read Charlene's comment here. They famously refuse traditional grid-based electricity, but they feel differently about solar because they purchase their own system instead of renting power from the power company. Their example of adopting solar carries weight in mainstream culture. That's a really good point. And I like that metaphor of becoming, an owner rather than a renter, and all the benefits that come from ownership. Does anyone have any other examples for like particular, uniquely Appalachian messengers? I noticed, I don't think anybody put, I missed it, elected officials. So I wonder, that might be a controversial one. I wonder if people have thoughts on how effective elected local or not local elected officials could be at spurring solar adoption.
The one thing that we've seen in Ohio is former elected officials seem to have more success than current elected officials. Oftentimes, a little distance between the time that they were elected makes them a little more beloved and trusted. So they have been really excellent sources of op-eds for us. A lot of times it's county officials that everybody knows. That has worked pretty well in the more rural areas of Ohio.
That's a great example. I'm going to turn that into a sticky here just to capture it. Yeah, sometimes it helps when they're no longer sitting in the legislature anymore.
So I have a quick question related to the local officials, Tracy. Do you find them to be effective messengers in their retirement because they are able to point to where there are problems in the policy system that are sort of exacerbating the situations that Henry was talking about earlier?
Some of them do feel a little more free to do that, but I think it's almost more the trusted nature that makes them effective. People know that they understand the concepts, they understand the structures, the different things that have to happen before these projects can be approved, but they are, they're no longer hesitant because the opposition isn't leaning on them the way they are current elected officials. So I think it's the respect and the trust and the knowledge balanced with the lack of accountability that comes once they're no longer elected.
Yeah, and just following up on that, thank you, Tracy. Just and real quick, Henry, has Sun or any of your other partners done, research or white paper on specific to the state level policies that are in the way of deployment? I know you spoke to earlier the fact that, those in power with the systems like to keep the systems the way they are. So I'm just curious if there's been any, documentation or strategy papers that are pointing to those specific places in the system that are causing blockages.
Yes, that's a good question. So we do a lot of work at the state level. So we have on our website, solarunitedneighbors.org, for the states where you have on-the-ground staff. So Pennsylvania, and in this region, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio. We write a lot about state policy level obstacles to it, and there's a lot. Mostly in our region, it's not so much obstacles as opposed to lack of support, lack of things that you would have in other states. But the one that I'll call out for this group that I think is really important everywhere is having a strong net metering policy. And so net metering governs the way that distributed solar interacts with the grid. What happens on the sunny summer days when you generate more than you need? Extra flows that back to the grid. How much credit do you get on your electric bill? What happens to that energy? And the standard for that is, tried and true in states all over the country for making solar economical is full retail rate net metering. So the extra energy I give back to the grid gives me a 1-to-1 credit on my bill. 1 kilowatt hour sent to the grid is 1 kilowatt hour I can use for free later. This is it's an advantage of being simple to understand. It's fair compensation that kind of reflects the value that solar provides to the grid. But it does encourage a lot of people to go solar, which is a good thing for most of us. But if you're a utility and your profits are pegged to how much energy you sell and how much stuff you build to sell more energy, net metering doesn't look so great because you're kind of losing sales essentially. So it gets attacked in a lot of different places. I talked about this in Florida. Pennsylvania has good net metering. West Virginia also has very good net metering as well. There's a statewide cap, which I can talk more about, but the policy is strong unless you get fair compensation for it. So that's one where you really see this utility, solar clash happening at the state level, and it repeats itself all over the country.
Well, yeah, thank you both so much. I sit in the land of the Tennessee Valley Authority, so I feel what you're speaking. So I get it. I get it. Thank you.
I will say too that I just dropped a link in the chat to a recent report that we helped commission alongside the West Virginians for Energy Freedom that really details the benefits that West Virginia stands to realize if we were to enable community solar here. Betty had a really great comment in the chat at the beginning of our session, and she was really calling out, well, what about the folks who don't have the option of going solar on their home, because of their home ownership status, or maybe, they have too many trees on their properties, or they're in an HOA, or something like that. And so that's one of our efforts this year, a little tangential to this workshop, but also something that we're working on is expanding access to solar here in West Virginia through enabling these programs. So happy to chat with anybody about that effort because we're gaining some traction. So.
Well, I think we're supposed to end this at 1:55. So we have about 7 more minutes. Maybe we can switch to talking about activating particular messengers. Leah, does that sound good to you?
It does. Yep, we have one more board here.
So
okay.
You'll see a third Jamboard page. Let's switch up at the top. What would it take to activate these messengers that we've been talking about? Assistance, resources, guidance. Do they need help going solar themselves? Do they just need education? Do they need outreach? Outreach from whom? But how do you take some of these individual organizations and turn them into people who are actually talking to their community about going solar? Maybe one we could start with that we talked about in particular was the retired local elected official, Tracy, that you brought up. I don't know if you have anything to share about how you create those kind of advocates.
One of the ways that we were able to be successful with that is literally just through relationships. And what we have found, and we're really just buckling into this a little bit more in Ohio at the community level, is because the organized funded opposition has just run the table on solar and wind development in Ohio. And it's time for us to start building the support at the same level that they have built the grassroots opposition, which in a lot of ways is astroturfed and not even real opposition. But the way we would want to activate these messengers is, one, as we talked about, a local trusted presence, whether that be community organizers hired from within the community or these local elected officials. And we have utilized relationships that come through the faith community, through the Ohio Conservative Energy Forum, which is a group, excuse me, that I know has local presence or national presence, but has a chapter in Ohio that has established these relationships with elected officials while they were elected officials, and then just maintained them. So it's a little bit of bench building and then maintaining those relationships into the future. It's a long-term strategy in some cases, but it has been effective.
See, funded community organizers, whoever put that on there, do you want to expand a little bit about how that works and why it's important?
Yes, that's me. So often you have people that it's fine to have volunteers, right? But to have enough time in your life to do these things requires somebody having some funding, which also gives a legitimacy. I've done a lot of this, this kind of, sorry about my phone, doing a lot of this when everyone if you go to people and you're just a community volunteer, you can be discredited. If you have a position, okay, you tend to be able to talk to local authorities better and to kind of hook into existing systems, as well as being paid enough to be able to give that time.
Yeah, that's a great point. It just brings legitimacy, and also, not everyone is able to volunteer their time to go around and talk to the neighbors about solar, and being able to compensate people for their time shows, gives them the resources to be able to do that, and also, shows respect for their time and efforts.
I will say, I just saw one come up in Forum Key Media. So maybe in lieu of fully funded community organizers, although that's definitely on our wish list as well. Informing Key Media seems to be a really effective tactic as well, and something that is, I think it's a relatively low lift that could have a very potential high impact and really help to spread the message of our common goals.
Leah, hi, this is Jordy. I think I typed as you were talking, but yeah, I would just be curious if, and by the way, just so people know, I live in Pennsylvania. I was born in Knoxville, and hearing Sally is going to pull my Southern accent out. So it's not a Mockingbird thing. It's just, it comes and goes depending on who I'm listening to. Yeah, I'd be curious, like I've seen in some other spaces, and it's called different things, but like an ambassador program, but like, instead of like, if you're an organization and you're like, instead of the full cost of a full-time organizer, which realistically, in my experience in rural areas and some things, it's usually somebody from somewhere else, right? So there's like a big job search, this person comes in, they pay her drop in. I literally have had like 9 political organizers call me in the last 3 or 4 years because somebody told them, if you want to know about rural PA, call Jordy. And I'm like, that's cool. I love to meet people from Oregon, but like, why couldn't we have hired, like, could we take the same amount of money and divide it into 4 or 5 pieces, right? And like, it's a little bit what Charlene was saying, the way I hear it is like a lot of the heavy lifting of communicating, coordinating, administrative stuff, which is hard to get volunteers to do it. If we could just kind of fund some people to do some of that, like stitching together of the ongoing efforts. Like, I'm just curious if people see models of that in this space, and because I would love to, I'd love to beg, borrow, steal those models of how it works, and if it works, and if funders are receptive, right, to like having part-time stipended or paid community, whatever you want to call them, to do that piece. So I don't know if that's directly related to what you were saying. I heard you say full-time organizers as I was typing my question in chat.
Yeah, hiring local, having local authentic messengers is really important. I do see, oh, they're going to send us back in 60 seconds. I just see Rebecca Kiernan's comment about talking about distributed solar versus grid scale. I think that can be effective. You know, in agriculture communities, it might be worth talking about where you see a lot of pressures and pushback against large scale solar because it's taking up farmland, you know, messing with the, you know, bucolic character of the area. And, you know, you can position grids, rooftop solar as, you know, it's not taking up any new land. It's benefiting people right here rather than sending its energy miles away. And you don't need those expensive, controversial transmission lines as well. So we just try to be careful because you don't want to like knock on other kinds of solar too much, but you can kind of make that contrast for like solar for local purposes rather than a big solar farm.
I will say as well, I noted that one of the challenges was the backup in the PJM log. And, you know, some of
wait another minute or so for everyone else to kind of linger back in here.
I think we're there. Welcome everybody. Thanks for sticking with us for the last couple hours. We have a little bit of couple things we're going to ask from you all. First, we have a survey for the day. If you already took it once, you can take it more than once. You can, oh, thank you, Molly. We both put it in there at the same time. But you get to enter to win a bandana or we have stickers as well if you want something that says Reimagine Appalachia on it. But really, we just really want your opinion and we really value your time. So second, I think we're going to do a couple while y'all can sit on that. But I think we're going to do a couple of those interactive questions for the group as we're trickling back in. Do you have those ready to go, Annie?
Yes, let me drop the first one in the chat and then I'll share my screen.
Great. So this is a question for what's the main reason you joined us today? We're looking to learn, you know, we have a lot of events at Reimagine Appalachia. That's one of the big things we do as a coalition. And it's so helpful for us to make sure that our content and programming is relevant and useful to you all. So in order to do that, we figured every now and then we should just ask you all to tell us. So you should tell us, why are you here? Why are we doing this? So it's so incredibly helpful for us when you guys do us the honor of sharing your, you know, why you're here with us today. So we'll give that a minute to fill out. Just a quick note about next steps. Tomorrow at 11 a.m. we have our second keynote panel. It's going to be focusing on community benefits and how to grow those with new federal funding. One thing I just said in our labor conversation was that the work to improve the lives of workers, to improve environmental quality, to make sure communities are empowered to make their decisions about their own community, that work has been going on for decades. It's not new, but what is new is this incredible opportunity we have with federal funding in the region. And so we're going to be hearing from folks who've been doing this work for decades on their thoughts on how we can use this new opportunity to expand community benefits in the region and make sure Appalachians who need the money the most are seeing those benefits. So I think we'll move to this next poll question, if you don't mind, Annie. And so you'll see a second poll popping up in the survey, or sorry, in the chat. If you can drop that in there. I've been talking a lot. All right, there's the second one. We'll fill that out again. And then we'll also have a series of breakout sessions after the panel tomorrow. As folks are filling out this survey, I'm making the wrong one. This one is one next step you're going to do or topic you're going to look into after the summit. So for this one, I encourage you all to answer that in the chat, but I also encourage you all to go off mute. So this is a moment for us, if you want to share really quickly something that you're really excited about that you saw in the workshop, or something that you feel like you can build on. So you can answer this in the poll, please do. Otherwise the screen will look very boring. But we also encourage you after you answered in the poll to come off mute and you can actually tell us with your mouths talking. Ooh, electric transfer. There's the winner. There you go. That's the biggest one. I'm excited. This is great.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So anybody want to share
quick takeaways or things that they were excited about that they saw in their panels. It can be I'll call on people if you just, but go ahead and just talk and come off mute.
One thing that came up this is Jordy Comis in Pennsylvania. One thing that came up in the faith group was that really set off a lot of sparks in my head was the idea of community benefit agreements. That was as a way for especially faith groups that maybe don't see themselves as viable for government funding. It's like a mechanism to be able to apply for that, or for coalitions that include those groups. But I also started thinking about all of the nonprofits that are nonprofits in name only, that don't really behave like nonprofits, and that's a tool maybe to get them to stop behaving like Fortune 500 companies that have a fig leaf of a nonprofit. I'm probably well known for being too vocal with my opinions, but that was one thing that I really appreciated.
That's great. Thank you, Jordy. Other folks have takeaways, or facilitators have takeaways?
This is Natalia.
Please.
I think one of the big challenges that we're all going to face that will require a lot of cooperation across every type of organization, whether it's grassroots coalitions on the ground or DC federally based organizations. And I don't know how we do it, but I believe we had Imam, again, from our faith group, I don't recall the last name, at our group, talking about how we have to make it plain. We have to make it plain for so many of our organizations. And, you know, we appreciate so much of the federal guidance, and the federal guidance is often hundreds of pages long with many, many links. And whether it's local government or our nonprofits or some of our houses of worship, it's really difficult with low capacity to figure out how to take advantage of these opportunities. So, I mean, I would even ask that if there are organizations who are here with us who have documents to make it plain, and to demystify some of these federal funding sources in a step-by-step fashion, email me. We'd be happy to figure out how to disseminate some of that.
Matt, thanks for raising your hand.
Thanks. Something I took away from the breakout session I facilitated was someone mentioned the development of local advisory committees in terms of bringing more folks to the table. And specifically, they mentioned hearing other voices besides those who are economically viable to volunteer for these organizations. And I thought that was really, I guess, insightful, because, you know, working with communities for so many years, you often get repeat volunteers, right? You get the same voices heard at these meetings, or the folks that are financially able to make it to that meeting, dedicate that time, have childcare, have the wraparound services needed to get there. So I don't know how you go from there, but really insightful. They mentioned something along the lines of potentially having a stipend for those to come out and dedicate their time to hear from those underrepresented folks, frankly, because they're supporting themselves, their families, and others in their neighborhood potentially. So thank you for the opportunity to participate today, and look forward to the next session.
Yeah, I had a conversation a few weeks ago, right before the break, I guess. But they were saying, you know, if all of these new projects are going to have these so all the new projects through the Department of Energy are going to have some kind of community benefit attached to them, so which is exciting. It's a wonderful proposal. It's a wonderful policy, and then we have ourselves to pat on the back to, you know, to see that policy as part of new Department of Energy funding. But they're saying, like, it's going to be the same, like they're going to be asking going to the same groups, the same people, the same leaders over and over again for all of these conversations, for all these new projects. And then, you know, with the amount of money we're looking at, it really could be quite a lot. And so I appreciate you lifting that up, that there is actually going to be this kind of interesting burden of communities the short timeline, I get it as far as the need to, you know, quickly decarbonize and build up clean energy, but it does not favor the lower resource communities, is what I'll say. So we're going to be seeing some interesting pressures. So it's great to acknowledge that, and I think to be thinking about those in advance. Other folks want to share takeaways or learnings, or kind of, you know, what they might want to, what they're kind of taking with them or might be building on going forward. And oh, I love it. I love it, Jenny. For those green tech hubs. So I think I'll leave it at that. I really appreciate all y'all's time. Folks seem quiet, and I totally get it. Your brains are full. It's been a busy 3 hours. We'll see folks again tomorrow. If you're not joining us tomorrow, you're invited to we have our twice monthly campaign update meetings. And then we also do have a series of events that is on our website, Reimagine Appalachia. We have an
.org/events.
Thank you. Just put it in there. Nobody's going to memorize what I say anyway. Yeah, so if you want to continue joining us, like I said, we'll get a wrap-up email with materials. There's been so many incredible links shared, and so we're going to do our best to try and capture those again in that wrap-up email with notes and all that. So Eric, I'm sitting here reading your comments. So thanks again to all of our incredible facilitators, speakers, behind the scenes, tech queens. That's your, you can put that on your business card, Annie.
Where's Annie? Wave your hand.
And Molly.
Our Zoom wizard. Molly,
and who here got an email from Molly up to Grove? Has anyone ever got an email?
Everybody here got an email from Molly.
So
wave, Molly.
Molly doesn't want you to acknowledge her, but go ahead and do mentally so she doesn't see it.
Bad.
She'll let her feel the good energy. Great. So I think we'll close out. I was just so excited reading Eric's all these beautiful comments coming in the chat. I'm just going to read those, and we'll hopefully see y'all tomorrow. And thank you all.
Great day.
Appreciate y'all. Any last comments? We're heading out. All right. Y'all have a good day.